She was 16 and already running into history. At an age when most kids are still figuring out who they are, Sydney McLaughlin stood on the biggest stage in track and field, the U.S. Olympic trials, and qualified. Not for the junior team, not for some prep meet, for the Olympic Games. And that was just the beginning. In less than a decade, she wouldn't just become the fastest 400-meter hurdler in the world. She would redefine the event entirely. But how does a teenager from Dunellen, New Jersey, go from being the youngest U.S. Olympian in 44 years to running times so fast they sound like mistakes? Let's go back. Sydney McLaughlin was born in 1999 into a family where sprinting wasn't just encouraged, it was inherited. Her father, Willie McLaughlin, was a semi-finalist in the 400 meters at the 1984 Olympic trials. Her mother, Mary, was a high school track athlete. Her siblings, Taylor, Morgan, and Ryan, all ran. Track wasn't just a sport, it was the family business. By the time Sydney turned 14, she was breaking high school records. Not local records, national ones. She could have passed as a college senior with the way she handled competition, interviews, and pressure. At 16, she broke the world youth best in the 400-meter hurdles with a time of 54.115 seconds. To put that in perspective, that time would have qualified her for most Olympic finals in history, and she was barely old enough to drive. Then came the moment that would change her life. She lines up for the 400-meter hurdles final. The announcers mention her age. The cameras pan to her family in the stands. No one expects her to actually make it. This is just a good experience, they say. She finishes third. Automatic qualification for the Rio Olympics. At 16, she was the youngest U.S. track and field Olympian since 1972. It wasn't just a great story. It was a warning shot to the rest of the world. Sydney wasn't the future. She was already here. But if Rio 2016 was the introduction, it was also the first lesson. Sydney didn't make the Olympic final. The moment was too big, too soon. She was a teenager in a global pressure cooker, and for the first time, she looked human. The world applauded her presence. But Sydney wasn't interested in just being there. She wanted to win. After the Games, she took a brief step back. College. She chose the University of Kentucky, one of the top track programs in the country. In just one season, she shattered expectations and records. She ran a 52.75 in the 400-meter hurdles as a freshman and helped lead her team to multiple relay titles. But college wasn't going to be a long-term chapter. After one season, she made a move few athletes dare to make so early. She turned professional, signed with New Balance, left the NCAA behind. Sydney McLaughlin was all in. Now, she wasn't just the teen prodigy anymore. She was on the track with professionals, women with Olympic medals, world titles, and reputations. One of them was Dalilah Muhammad. And to be the best, Sydney would have to go through her. Dalilah Muhammad wasn't just the world champion. She was the reigning queen of the 400-meter hurdles, Olympic gold in Rio, world-class consistency. And in 2019, she was running at the peak of her powers. Sydney McLaughlin was now her challenger, the rookie with the speed, the composure, the promise. At the World Championships in Doha, the two lined up in the final, fire and ice, the veteran and the prodigy. And what followed was one of the greatest races in history. Dalilah surged from the blocks. Sydney stalked her, matching each stride. It was clear early. This wasn't going to be a win by inches. This was going to be a record-breaking showdown. Dalilah crossed the line first, 52.16 seconds, a new world record. Sydney finished right behind her, 52.23, the fastest losing time the event had ever seen. She had run the race of her life, and it still wasn't enough.
I knew it was going to be fast. I didn't think it'd be that fast. But being able to come away, with a PR and the second fastest time, it's just amazing.
That loss would become the turning point. Sydney had always been gifted, but now she had a mission. In 2020, she changed everything, moved across the country, joined Bobby Kersee, the legendary coach behind Jackie Joyner-Kersee and Allison Felix. It wasn't just about running fast anymore. It was about becoming complete. Kersee pushed her to rethink the event, to treat every hurdle as a rhythm, a moment of execution, not effort. More than that, he taught her how to trust herself, how to let go of outside expectations and race with stillness. And as the world shut down in 2020, Sydney trained in silence. Then came Tokyo, August 4th, 2021. The women's 400-meter hurdles final. Sydney in lane 4, Dalilah Muhammad in lane 5. The world was watching, and this time, Sydney was ready. From the gun, Dalilah took it out hard, as she always did. By the halfway point, they were shoulder to shoulder. The final turn was electric, but as they entered the last straight, Sydney found another gear, her form machine-like, hurdles melting beneath her stride. She crossed the finish line in 51.46 seconds, a new world record. Dalilah finished second, again in one of the fastest times ever run. 2 athletes, 2 extraordinary races. And for the first time, Sydney was on top of the world, literally.
When you looked over and saw the time, what was your first thought?
Oh my gosh.
The win wasn't just about time, it was about evolution. But the story didn't stop there. Less than a year later, she did something no one thought possible. Sydney McLaughlin ran 50.68 seconds in the 400-meter hurdles. 50.68. Let that number sit for a moment. Not only did she break her own world record, she ran so fast she would have placed 7th in the men's final at the Tokyo Olympics. No woman in history had ever run under 52 seconds. Sydney ran under 51. It wasn't just dominance, it was a new definition of the event. The 400-meter hurdles had been reimagined, and Sydney McLaughlin was no longer the future of the sport. She was its benchmark. Before Paris, before the next record, there was something far more personal. In May of 2022, Sydney McLaughlin stood at another kind of starting line, her wedding to former NFL receiver Andre Levrone Jr. In that moment, she didn't just gain a partner, she stepped into a new identity. Sydney McLaughlin Levrone. To the outside world, it was a name change, but to her, it marked the beginning of a deeper transformation, from prodigy to woman, from champion to legacy builder. And with Paris 2024 looming, the stakes had never been higher. August, the women's 400-meter hurdles final, the event she'd made her own. The crowd was electric, but Sydney, calm, composed. She exploded out of the blocks and never looked back. Hurdle by hurdle, her form was flawless, every stride a statement, every clearance a challenge to history. And then, the clock stopped. 50:37 seconds, another world record, another Olympic gold. She'd done what few champions ever do, not just defend a title, but break new ground doing it. It wasn't just a win, it was dominance redefined, and she wasn't finished. Days later, she anchored the US women's 4x400-meter relay. With the world watching, Sydney closed the race with power and precision, helping her team capture another gold, with a time just shy of the world record. 2 golds, 2 historic performances. Sydney had become more than a specialist. She was now a pillar of Team USA. But even as the world celebrated, she was already thinking ahead. Long before she dominated the 400-meter hurdles, Sydney had another gift, the 100-meter hurdles. She ran 12.65 seconds back in 2021, one of the best marks in the world that year. So why walk away from it? Because she chose the 400-meter hurdles. One event, one mission, one record. That singular focus turned her into a legend. But now, she's looking for something more. Sydney McLaughlin Levrone has announced her next challenge, her professional debut in the 100-meter sprint, and a return to the 100-meter hurdles, not just to compete, to win, to push her limits, again. In 2025, she's training for explosiveness, for acceleration, for control over 10 barriers in just over 12 seconds. It's a new race, a new rhythm, and Sydney's embracing every moment of it. It's no longer just about medals, it's about legacy. She's proven herself in one of the most grueling events in track and field. She's led relays to glory, and now she's sprinting straight into a new chapter, rewriting the story once more. From the youngest U.S. track Olympian in a generation, to a woman who defies what we thought was possible. This is Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, and the race is just getting started.